Can you imagine waiting for 108 days and you still don't know if or when your son is coming home? 108 days in captivity in Gaza. 19-year-old Itay Chen was on active duty on the 7th of October, part of a tank unit at the Nahal Oz Army base. He is a dual American-Israeli citizen who had stayed at the base during that weekend so he could return home for his younger brother's bar mitzvah in Netanya the following week. And now we welcome Ruby Chen, father of Itay Chen. Ruby, thank you so much for speaking to us. We cannot imagine what you and your family are going through 108 days later. But it was 2 days after that Hamas massacre when you were notified that Itay is officially considered missing in action and is probably being held hostage in Gaza. What updates have you had since then? What can you tell us?
Unfortunately, Benita, nothing much substantial. The expectation for all the hostages, but I would even dare to say the U.S. citizens that are friends in the region would be able to provide us, the U.S. citizens, some sort of sign of life, any type of update, medical attention. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. And as the other hostages, as you know, the International Red Cross has not been able to enter Gaza, questioning families, questioning the amount of effort that they put into that. And of course, no medical attention. Doctors Without Borders have not been allowed to come in as well, which is highly disappointing, taking into consideration that the mission statement of the International Red Cross includes a permanent mandate from all the international community to exactly do that, which is protect and deal with victims in conflict and protect them. And that has not happened.
And why do you think that the U.S. pressure hasn't worked? As we are speaking, I'm seeing that the White House says there are ongoing discussions with partners to get another release deal for hostages. But this has been a recurrent level of reporting around deals with Egypt, Qatar, the U.S. as well. Your take as to why it just hasn't come to fruition so far?
So we as families, of course, are not privy to the actual negotiations going on, and nor should we be, because this is why we have elected officials. But I come from the business sector, and when you have a plan, you put together some working assumptions that you base your plan on. And when we meet officials both in Israel and the United States, we challenge those working assumptions. And I, as a business person, after 108 long days, would look at those working assumptions and I would challenge them and see, why are we not getting to the finish line like we should be? And there we have somewhat difficult discussions, but I think we need to mix it up. There needs to be a, macro view. Israel came into this with some sort of working assumptions and goals that they thought that they would meet within X amount of days. That has not happened. And the question is, what do you do now? Do you continue with the same game plan? Or do you look at a different game plan? And it's hard to understand where you are and try to get to that finish line, which is the release of all the hostages as soon as possible.
And over and above moves towards a deal, and as we say, they are ongoing. Obviously, in recent days, there seemed to be some level of breakthrough in terms of efforts to get medicines to some of the hostages, but there was no confirmation as to which hostages, there was no confirmation as to proof of life, and there was also no verification, to our knowledge at least, that any medicine had got to any specific hostages. What can you share on that front? What do you know, and what are your thoughts about those efforts to get medicines at last to the hostages, but then there's no follow-up process or verification procedure?
Yeah, and even taking one step back, Benita, like when you say medicine to the injured, we do not even have the identification or knowledge who is injured and how, because that is the prerequisite to saying that the hostages got the medicines that they needed. Even when it comes to the negotiation, what are we negotiating on? How many of these hostages are alive and how many are not? So you would think after 108 days, these prerequisites would already be in place, and they have not been in place. And again, I challenge Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I challenge also the President of the United States. Look at the game plan, see what is working, what is not working, with the regional partners, Qatar, Egypt, and others. And maybe there needs to be a different game plan.
And it is difficult to say, obviously, but we know that the War Cabinet is meeting right now. You're talking about a potential different game plan. What exactly does that mean? What exactly are you hoping will look different to try and make sure that all the hostages get home safely? Time is of the essence.
Yeah, so we just came back from the United States, the U.S. families, where we met Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, as well as other Biden administrative officials. And the message that we got is that looking at Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he has two options, two strategic options. Or he will be remembered as the one that was in charge, and on his shift, October 7th happened, with all associated with that date. Or he is able to look forward and be able to consider giving hope to this region, to all the players in the region, with a plan that will enable the release of all the hostages from captivity. When I mean all of them, including the deceased, all of them need to come out. There's no more staged deals because there's no categorization that is valid after 108 days. Everybody needs to come out. For that requires leadership. And we look at Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he is in charge. It is his responsibility. He owns it. He needs to be able to be bold enough, be a leader in this time for the Jewish people, and be able to bring back the hostages. That is the victory picture, nothing else.
And that is certainly something that the whole nation is hoping for and praying for. And as we said earlier, we know the War Cabinet is meeting as we speak, and we wait to see the latest developments on that front.
I just may add one last sentence.
Sure.
Today is a difficult day. We heard of 3 IDF soldiers. I would like to send my condolences to the families, because we know that they actually, one of the missions is finding my kid as well. So if it was possible to hug every single one of those families that sacrificed what they did, I would. And we also know the battles in Khan Yunis have not ended, and we just pray that every single one of those soldiers comes out okay and is able to go back home and hug his mom, his dad, his wife, his kids, whatever it might not be, and everybody comes back safely.
Ruby Chen, thank you so much. We certainly, the whole nation, hoping for good news about Itay, about all the hostages. And you said it so well, all the hostages should come back home and should come back home safely. 108 days waiting
Yesterday.
for answers. 108 days, absolutely. Ruby Chen, thank you very much for being with us on i24 News. The heart of the nation is with you.